This discussion will address the infographic data visualization project, as well as my comments on and responses to the academic discourse draft. First, I want to address the infographic data visualization. I'm going to address this first because it is the shorter term of both of the projects that we're working on. This is the one that we'll be doing this week, handing in this week, and getting graded on next week. So only makes sense to talk about it now, given that it's only going to be this week. First, you'll hear me use both of these terms, infographic data visualization. Data visualization is the umbrella term that has to do with infographics and any other sort of visualization that helps us to be able to understand data in some different way other than just having that data in strictly numerical form. Now, an infographic is one form of data visualization, but it just happens to be the form that we are the most used to. There are plenty others, though, and you'll see those things discussed in both the video from McCandless and also the Wikipedia entry that I'm asking everyone to look at for this week. So, with the infographic data visualization, we'll want to make sure that that's making a point about its subject matter somehow, right? So we wouldn't be making one of these that has to do with cars, but instead automobile design and how it works. We would be making one of these not just about, say, how electricity works, but one particular usage of it or a way of wiring. If you are perhaps talking about electricity and architecture, for example. Right. So again, this has to have a point. It can't just say something about subject matter in general. We've got to be saying something about perhaps how to do something or how to understand the subject matter. This is a chance to communicate in a different way using graphical elements in addition to words and numbers. So basically, I'm trying hard here to address the fact that we don't just communicate in words and essays, but instead, it's more and more frequently the case that we communicate with images and graphical elements through things like data visualizations. Now, this does not have to be tied to the topic from the public discourse analysis and academic discourse analysis, unless you would like it to be. And by now, you've done enough reading about both of those different analyses and the subject matter you've chosen for them that it's possible that you've got a lot of good data that you could use on that. And if you want to, go right ahead. But if you're tired of dealing with that particular subject and topic, you could move on to something new. That's fine. Lastly, this represents a break from the usual course activities. And the goal there is to give you a chance to do something new, but also to give you a chance to gather your energies for the last 5 weeks of the course, during which we'll have a final project to write. And in general, it's just the time when things get very busy. So the more of a chance we've got to kind of take a breather before that, the better off we'll be. So, with the infographic and data visualization, there are two things that I'm referring you to for this week. There's the David McCandless TED Talk. This gives us some inspiration. It gives us a reason for creating a data visualization. And if you haven't seen that yet, I invite you to go take a look at it. It really is good watching. I highly recommend it. After that, take a look at the Wikipedia entry called Data Visualization. It's going to give you some very useful background and references. It'll give you a brief history of data visualizations, some theory behind how they work, terminology to help you understand the individual parts of what you'll be creating, examples of both data visualizations in general and specifically important data visualizations to the very beginning of the discipline. In particular, there's a data visualization there that has to do with Napoleon's march to and from Russia during a military campaign. So, in that way, the examples that come across in the Wikipedia article are very informative. And finally, it'll give you an analysis of various types and techniques of data visualizations. With the creation of a data visualization, once you get to that point, please know that of the 3 data visualization creation tools that are mentioned in the assignment guidelines, um, they're all free. There is no need to buy anything. There's no need to pay for a subscription of any sort. I selected these specifically because there is an option with all of them to be able to take what you've created and share it out somehow without having to pay money. It's possible that one of these might work better for you than others do, so leave yourself time to try them all out. The interfaces are similar in that they're all helping you to do a similar thing. Again, create a data visualization somehow. But they work in different enough ways that, like I just said, it might be that one of these is just more natural for you than the other ones are. So give them all a try. With the grading of this, number one, looking to, excuse me, give you credit for trying something new, as this is probably going to be. And there will be a chance to revise once in cases where a change is necessary to make your data visualization really effective. So, as I go over these, if there's a simple change you could make to increase how effective the data visualization is, I'll make a note of that and make sure you realize that that one change will probably raise the grade. Moving on to the academic discourse analysis. First, drafts that were due this past Sunday at 11:59 p.m. If you weren't able to submit a draft, contact me and we'll talk about exactly why that was and how we're going to deal with it. The final is due by April 24th. You have the time to make revisions, and if you want to get in touch with me to go over the assignment, that sounds a lot further away than it actually is, primarily having to do with the fact we're already halfway through this week, and we've got that second week of spring break coming up, which means that really that's not 4 weeks away as much as it is about 2.5 weeks away, which is much more in keeping with the other lengths of time that we've had between a draft due date and a final due date. So again, don't look at that date and assume that you've got forever to do it. That's going to come up pretty quick. This is the second to last writing assignment of the semester. After this, there will only be one more 100-point assignment, at which point, once that's done and graded, all of the points of the semester are in, and your grade is simply whatever you've got out of 1,000 and move your decimal point one place to the left. So know now that we're coming up on the end of the semester. We are coming up on the end of available points. And relatively soon, you should be able to start seeing your grade creep up through the D's and C's and B's and maybe even A's if you're doing that much. So by all means, start monitoring that grade in Blackboard and you'll be able to see exactly what your progress is. Now, the basic premise of the academic discourse analysis goes like this. Step one. Public discourse works like this, says something about this topic. In other words, the first step is looking back at that public discourse essay and writing briefly about our conclusions from that. Step two, where public discourse worked in one way and said one thing, academic discourse works this way and says this other thing about the topic, right? And so we would be stating this as a way of allowing the essay to set up the eventual compare and contrast that will give us both the structure for the most part of the essay and also the content for the most part of the essay afterwards. What follows then is basically this. Here are the ways in which what is said through public discourse is similar to what is said through academic discourse. On the other hand, here are the ways in which what is said through in which what is said through public discourse is different from through academic discourse. Now, mention of public discourse should not take up too much space or take up too much of our time because we spent an entire essay working on that already. That was the previous essay. We mention and address public discourse at the beginning of this essay as a way to set up the eventual compare and contrast between it and the academic discourse that the essay will be focusing on mainly. Now, if this difference between what is public discourse and what is academic discourse, or in more general, what's the difference between general audience writing versus scholarly writing is, something that you're not quite aware of, or if you still find that you're a little bit confused by it, go back a week, take a look at the week 9 discussion. It is in significant detail. And one of the things that it covers is indeed that difference between general audience writing and scholarly writing. So if that's something that confuses you at all, it is well worth going back to the week 9 discussion for that topic. The academic discourse analysis has to have the same topic or a very similar topic to that of public discourse analysis. It needs to be focused on an academic scholarly research article, and that's key, right? The only way we can make this compare and contrast work is if we're addressing an academic scholarly research article. We need to compare how public discourse works to how academic discourse works. It has to make specific reference to specific parts of the single academic scholarly research article you've chosen to work with. And finally, this academic discourse analysis needs to draw conclusions about how knowledge is transmitted in public discourse versus in academic discourse. On the other hand, the academic discourse analysis should not repeat material from the public discourse analysis. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to go back and regurgitate large amounts of what we've already said. There will be some reference to the public discourse analysis at the beginning, but like I've already said here, that's only to allow us to set up the compare and contrast that will follow. The academic discourse analysis should not have an entirely different topic from the public discourse analysis. Like we just said, it needs to have that same topic so we can make the comparison that we're aiming to make. Finally, it should not be centrally about the topic, right? Remember, in both this essay and in the previous one, the topic's there, but it's only so we've got something to eventually write about. However, the focus is the approach that the one kind of discourse takes versus the other one, right? Last essay, we were looking at the way that public discourse dealt with the topic. This time around, we're looking at the way that academic discourse deals with the topic. Right, so it's how the discourse deals with the topic, not the topic itself, that's central to what we're writing about here. I'm sure that there will be further comments and reactions as we go. Come next week, there will certainly be other things that I've noticed in drafts that I will come to you with a discussion of. For now, though, good luck in your writing. If you have questions about the infographic or data visualization, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer those. In the meantime, good luck, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.